Well, good morning, folks. Tons of propaganda news stories. I'm just, wow, right across Canada, over and over, trying to cement this great big Canadians hate America strategy by the Crown, and of course, really pushed by the Liberal Party of Canada. And yes, there are a lot of nutty leftists in Canada. People very comfortable with the Crown autocracy who really do hate Americans. I've always known that. But let's not confuse the fact that there's a real reason why Canadians are no longer moving to the United States. I live with it. I just finished up a tour of the Ozark in the United States, 3 southern states, and of course, a good majority of it, you touch into it with Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, beautiful, right up through Missouri, and it ends in Missouri. And of course, I finished off in Kansas City, folks, where I went and visited one of my sister locals in the International Brotherhood of Boilermakers. And the big thing about it was I got a tour. Their business manager took me through the entirety of their hall, big tour. All of those Kansas City that holds Boilermakers in 3 states. They are balls to the wall busy. My hall in Edmonton is the biggest hall in all of Canada. Most members, relatively dead and quiet, as it has been for a decade now. No major projects, no major construction or expansion here in Canada. Isolated Chinese growing investments over and over, which don't really count for a whole lot of work if Boilermakers can even get on those projects. A lot of it is secured with foreign companies and their foreign workforce, even though Canadians are just as qualified and probably more competent, but the companies aren't getting the contracts for what little there is. But in the U.S., when I went through that Ozark, lots of beautiful property, very cheap, very affordable. Any average Canadian, a working Canadian, could invest. But here's the problem, the same problem I have for Americans to understand. Before USMCA, we were under NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. People like myself, through the Boilermakers, could easily apply for a green card. If any of those halls were busy, like right now, Missouri is off the charts. The business manager's like, we need you. You come here, you work with us. We'll keep you working 10 years. I'm like, yeah, that most program, the more program, inaccessible now. Doesn't matter how qualified and competent, highly skilled I am. My English is great. I'll fit in no problem. I do standard or metric, no problem. 3D, no problem. Right? Every process, American through the API, all of it, expert. No reason for anyone like myself with as many years to not be able to go and easily fit in, fill one of those vacancies, which there are in plenty of vacancies. And they're screaming for people. 10 years of work, mass amounts of plants. They don't know what they're going to do. That's the truth. But under USMCA, all skilled tradespeople are no longer eligible for an American green card or fill any of those vacancies. That green card system is gone entirely. The Democrats loved it. They pursued an illegal immigration program to substitute for that, which makes no sense. Chrystia Freeland in Canada was the one who negotiated that provision with the Democrat senator from the northern eastern states. I know it. I went through that. I caught it after. But it absolutely made sure no Canadian could ever work average Canadian, skilled Canadian, could ever work in the United States ever again. So folks, yes, I can go buy property in the United States, but without a green card, I'm not legally allowed to work there. Now, the poor man's route. So, okay, I can't get a traditional green card. What can I do? I can buy a property in the United States where I have to remain for exactly 6 months a year holding that property, not eligible to legally work in the United States, which means I have to go back to Canada 6 months. I have to work balls to the wall in Canada and save up for my living in the United States for a 6-month period. I live at this residence I purchased in the United States without the ability to work, build on the place, get booted out after 6 months back to Canada, work, go back to the States. You do that 3 times, 18 months, and you get permanent residence in the United States, in the state that you purchased your home. So let's say I grab some in the Ozark, I start building it, I'm able to live for 6 months without working, and I have to maintain that 6-month period in the States without working 3 times in a row, get permanent resident, then I can apply for ID, then I can get a driver's license, then I can attempt to try a green card application visa. Again, at a very big long shot, looking for sponsorship in a very skilled and specialized portion of my trade, which is very, very hard to do in the United States. That alone turns every Canadian off of purchasing in the United States. Think about it. You invest in a primary resident and you may never ever be able to get a green card. How many of you can take 6 months off a year and live in a foreign country with no income and do that 3 years in a row, 6 months a shot? Well, the average family Canadian person isn't going to purchase in the United States, isn't going to pursue that. Many will never be able to pursue that. In the 90 percentile, that's what's been locked out for all Canadians, folks. And American Canadian, that's the truth. That's why so many Canadians don't do it, because they can't do it. It's too risky. Middle age or your working life, that's suicide for a lot of people. And people with kids, they're never going to do it. This is what they're not telling you. Throughout the Commonwealth, you go to work right away. If I want to go to Australia, no problem. With my trade ticket, I'll be working. But it's the exact same economic monarchical system as it is in Canada, New Zealand, UK. And that's the scam here. We've all been cut off of the United States of America, which it wasn't that way. I have 2 uncles, 2 deep sea welders in their time, 70s and early 80s. They went to the States, never came back. And they were both welders, deep sea welders for a time. They made a life, one in California, another one in southern U.S., Louisiana, and they made a life. They made a life there, no problem. I had lots of friends before USMCA all go about and do that. I had a friend, he passed away now, a truck driver, had a family in the States, built a life in Texas, never looked back. Everybody under the old system all easily got their green cards, all transitioned into becoming American, never came back to Canada. All of them very happy and very limited amount of visiting to Canada ever again. You know, you hear from family members and friends, but on a limited basis. They loved their life in the United States, transitioned very well, never wanted to come back. And I know with my one buddy who was a truck driver, he attempted 3 businesses, just like me, with rig welding and a welding business. Attempted it 3 times. The rigged system, the economy of Canada, the way it is, up and crash down, yo-yo, wreck you entirely. A friend of mine went bankrupt 3 times in Canada too. And guess what? Goes to the States, makes it first shot, never looks back. And then he said, no, man, I'll never be Canadian again. I'll never go through that again. Being a small business entrepreneur in Canada is a joke. The States, if you have the drive, the gut, the determination, you will find success way more than you ever will in Canada. But that now, the way into the States now, like myself, skilled trades, off the table. You have to be extremely specialized, scientific, or an elite managerial training person in a specialized title. And really it limits 90% of what used to be able to go to the United States. Fully English speaking, fully trained, like I said myself, in standard, fractional math, all of it. We're all just as competent, if not more competent, in the American Petroleum Institute than we are in the rest of it. And it's very sad. It's very sad that having those American universal skills in English and you don't get a path to a green card or any real path to citizenship outside of extreme economic disadvantage. And then of course the only other way is to buy your way in. There's $250,000 USD investment, suppressed neighborhood investment, $125,000 USD, or of course there's $1 million golden ticket. Other than that, a Canadian will never get into the United States on any normal traditional path. And again, this was negotiated by a Democrat senator and Chrystia Freeland. It was a little piece they threw into USMCA. I didn't catch it till after. A lot of Americans didn't, Republicans didn't catch it. And now that is the reality. And then you watched America transition into mass illegal immigration, where it's basically they want slaves because they can't legally work either. So, I don't know, rich Democrat states in California love it. New York loves it because they have people that will work for slave labor, right? Cash only, don't have to pay any benefits, none of that. So, this is a news story that's being pumped out as propaganda in Canada, that Canadians don't want to move to the United States. They hate the United States. It's not the truth at all. The truth is, nearly all of Canadians in a 90 percentile are ineligible to work and live in the United States forevermore under the USMCA. The best thing that could come is Donald J. Trump does not renew the USMCA, which it's looking like he won't. Canada's made massive investments and transition into China's critical minerals, their investments. We're watching major Canadian government funding on infrastructure for Chinese security. You're going to see this every week. I'm going to go through them. There's another major one in BC. There's one in Saskatchewan. Scott Moe, after COP28, has now gone to China to try and secure canola and take on EVs and build that copper mine for China against the United States after winning an $8 billion critical mineral nuclear deal with the United States of America. It's worth $8 billion in long-term GDP for Saskatchewan, and he's going to put that on risk for a $2 billion canola copper deal with China, and to bring electric EVs from China to Saskatchewan. How can you go for a meeting like that? How could you risk an $8 billion economic deal with the United States for a $2 billion deal with China? This is the problem with the very socialist and fascist Canadian politician. They want it all. They think that they can play everybody against each other and fill their pockets. They don't understand. You can't have the double talk, the double speak. USA is going to catch you. They see you, Scott Moe. They know what you're doing. Do you think when they want those securities for America's national security, they're just going to sit back and go, oh, that's okay, Scott Moe. Betray us after we made a deal. Betray us after we agreed to invest in your province at an unprecedented rate. Go ahead, use the proceeds from our investment to fund Chinese expansion, where it's not even China investment, it's the province of Saskatchewan and the federal government, Canadian taxpayers, all around investing in China's expansion, but not America's. We haven't figured it out, folks. We are the socialist fascists. We are on a war with America, and we're choosing China at an unprecedented rate. The propaganda in the news is so strong today, but all you have to do is look at how much Canadian investment into Chinese infrastructure and critical systems for China we're putting in, and China isn't. And China's not investing in Canada. We have this investment deal, but it's Canada, large multinational businesses, Canadian Crown, using your tax dollars to do just that for China. Why? Why? Nobody wants to answer that question. You can look at that G7 radar, that NATO radar the United States built, where they're following Canada entirely. Through tariffs, they're following Canada and all of Canada's expansions. And you can go look at that. China not investing in Canada, Canadians investing in China at an unbelievable rate. That's my video. Share. Get it out there. Learn the truth. Canadians don't hate America. Canadians don't qualify to work in America anymore. And I think any American would tell you, if you knew you couldn't legally work in Canada, the idea of wanting to buy a home in Canada becomes out of reach, because it's terrifying. It's terrifying. The idea that you may not be able to work, well, you won't work for at least 3 years. And even after that 3 years, if you serve that tremendous risk and you serve that for a property in the United States and you acquire that permanent resident status, you still got to get sponsored by a company. And it's a hope. It's a hope and a prayer that that happens for you. In reality, it could not happen for you. You may find yourself having to leave every 6 months. Every 6 months having to go back to Canada, having to work, having to have a residency there too. Do you know how hard it is for your average Canadian to own 2 properties? Craziness, let alone 1. That's my video. Share. Get the truth out there. Bye now.